The Nikon D100 was released back in 2002. Now, at the time, this cost around $2,000. Nowadays, you can find this used for about $45. So, just what do you get with this 20-year-old camera? Well, there's a 6.1 megapixel CCD sensor, an ISO range from 100 to 1600, but it does go up to 6400 in extended mode, and there's a 1.8-inch 118K dot LCD screen. You know, it's funny, this wasn't intentional, but if you're watching this video within a day or two of when it came out, you're actually watching this on the camera's 20th birthday. This camera was announced on February 21st, 2002. That wasn't intentional, that was just a wild coincidence. I mean, I literally just needed an idea for a video, walked into my office and picked the D100 up off the bookshelf. I had no idea it was 20 years old exactly to the day. Build quality on the D100 is good, but it's a little bit plasticky. It's what Nikon was calling a high-impact plastic. It's pretty similar to a lot of film cameras at the time. It's sort of surprisingly plasticky by modern standards, but overall, it's really sturdy. You know, it feels excellent in the hands. Now, in terms of autofocus, the D100 has 5 autofocus points. There's one in the center, and then the other 4 are just kind of laid out in a diamond pattern around that center autofocus point. Maybe not great by modern standards, but it is okay, and it's definitely usable and workable. It's surprising what Nikon was able to do with such a limited amount of autofocus points. You know, in all honesty, in the time that I've been filming this video, I haven't really had that much problem with autofocus, though don't expect modern autofocus. It's not going to be snappy and crazy, you know, super precise eye autofocus like modern cameras, but still, if you're mindful of what you're doing, you know, you can definitely work with the autofocus on this camera. Storage media on the D100 is compact flash cards. Nikon officially states that it takes up to 4 GB cards, but I think you might be able to get away with a little bit higher than that. The shutter speed on the D100 goes up to 1/4000th of a second, and you've got a flash sync speed of up to 1/180th of a second. Now, in terms of burst mode, you've got 3 frames per second on this camera. In RAW, you've got 3 frames up to 3 frames, and in JPEG, you've got 3 frames per second up to about 6 frames, and that's pretty much it. So, all you would-be sports shooters, this might not be the budget-friendly sports camera you were looking for. Now, in terms of image quality, the Nikon D100 is actually great. You know, you've got that CCD sensor, and I've talked about this at length in other videos, so I won't go into it, but it just looks different, man. You know, for those of you like newer or younger photographers who don't really remember, at the dawn of the digital era, you had 2 different options. You had CCD sensors and you had CMOS sensors. The CMOS sensors were cheaper and easier to mass produce, and so they kind of won out and took over, and then CCD just kind of went the way of the dodo. Oh, why do you have to say that? CCD just kind of went away. So nowadays, you know, it doesn't matter what camera you're using. If you're using a Canon, Sony, Nikon, Fuji, Olympus that I'm filming this on, Panasonic, whatever size the sensor, whatever type the sensor, it's still a CMOS sensor. CMOS sensors are great, but for me personally, they're technically brilliant, but they don't have the sort of character that CCD sensors had. And that's part of why I just love the images coming out of the Nikon D100. So it kind of begs the question, is the Nikon D100 still worth it in 2022? And the answer is yes and no. See, it's a difficult one. The D100 is definitely still a great camera, and it's definitely still worth it. But the problem is the Nikon D200 exists, and it only cost about $15 more. I mean, Yes, you can get a Nikon D100 for $45, but for $60 you can get a Nikon D200, which also has a CCD sensor and is kind of way more modern than the D100. So, I mean, on one hand, it is kind of nice to have as a camera collector, you know, that first D100, but in a practical sense, it's kind of hard to recommend the D100 when the D200 is still so cheap and is only $15 more, but is way, way, way more modern. Here's the thing. If you buy the D100, you won't be disappointed. It's a really great camera and it has great image quality. But if you buy the D200 for 15 bucks more, you might be a bit more excited. You know, you might actually find yourself taking that out to, like, I don't know, actual photo shoots. You know, I've done a few shoots here and there where I actually brought the D200 with me as a B cam. It's still that good. Don't let the D200 take away from the D100. The Nikon D100 is still an absolutely brilliant camera, and at $45, I mean, come on, man. Buy a D100 and buy a D200 to go with it. Like, I mean, they're both so affordable at this point, and you'll get great image quality out of both. So it's kind of up to you, you know? Do you want the novelty and the price of the D100, or do you want a slightly more modern experience with the D200? Anyway, I think that's all I've got for today, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.